Hello, and welcome to the Farm to School Purchasing Grant webinar. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. My name is Rachel Breslauer, and I'm the Farm to School Purchasing Grant Specialist with the Washington State Department of Agriculture. Today, I'll provide an overview of the Farm to School Purchasing Grant for the 2025 to 2027 biennium. If you have any questions throughout this webinar, you can contact me at the email listed here. You can also find more information about application question and answer sessions on the grant website and at the end of this presentation. This will be our agenda for today. We'll begin with an overview of the structure of the grant program, the types of awards that WSDA offers, allowable costs for grant projects, the criteria used to evaluate projects in a competitive community review, and then we'll also give an overview of the grant portal and how you can submit your application through the grant portal. This grant program is housed within the Washington State Department of Agriculture Regional Markets Program. This program has three main aims in addition to just overall farm to school programming. We aim to strengthen the economic viability of small and direct marketing farms, increase the availability of healthy, locally grown foods for all Washingtonians, and support robust local food and agricultural economies. So, farm to school is closely related to the second goal here, increasing the availability of healthy, locally grown foods for all Washingtonians. We look at our child nutrition as a route for connecting a broad spectrum of Washingtonians to healthy foods. But you'll also notice throughout this presentation and in our grant guidelines that we emphasize supporting small and direct marketing farms. So this is in line with other parts of our program, and so that is where some of that emphasis comes from. Now I'll dive into a general overview of our grant program. This grant is funded by the Washington State Legislature through ongoing state general funds. The legislature has provided funding for grants to support the purchase of Washington-grown foods in child nutrition programs. This grant program was then established to allocate this funding for the grant purpose. As I mentioned on the previous slide, we are within the Regional Markets Program, which emphasizes and supports small and direct marketing farms. So this grant program also encourages grantees to source foods from small farms, which USDA defines as having an annual gross cash income of less than $350,000. So this is consistent with our Regional Markets Program goals, and purchasing from small farms strengthens local relationships and economies. So this helps us make impact beyond just improving our Washington-grown, the purchase and use of Washington-grown foods. Throughout this presentation, I'll provide quite a bit of detailed information. All of this information draws from our grant guidelines, which are posted on our grant website. The link is shown here. You can also find this webpage by scanning this QR code with your phone, and you'll be able to peruse that website and find information and the information I'm covering today. Now we'll give an overview of who is eligible to apply for this program. The first group of people that are eligible to apply are schools and early learning programs operated by federally recognized tribes. So if you fall into this group, you do not also need to operate one of the federal child nutrition programs that I reference later. So if you are operated by a federally recognized tribe and are a school or early learning program, you are eligible to apply for this grant. Otherwise, you must operate one of these two programs to apply, either the National School Lunch Program or be a child care, an early learning care organization that is a child and adult care food program sponsor. Within this, this is only for child care providers, including child care centers or sponsoring organizations of unaffiliated facilities. This is either family daycare homes or sponsors of unaffiliated child care centers. Some additional requirements for eligibility to apply for the grant. NSLP and CACFP sponsors must have operated the program for at least 1 year immediately prior to application. So if you are a new sponsor, you're not eligible to apply for this program at this time. Sponsors are also obligated to remain active program sponsors throughout the entire grant period and also be in good standing with OSPI at the time of application, as well as throughout the grant period. As I mentioned on the previous slide, this grant is only intended for CACFP sponsors of early learning care, of child care only. So adult care centers, emergency shelters, and at-risk after-school meal programs are not eligible to apply. Individual family daycare providers cannot apply, but applications must come from the sponsoring organization. So please get in contact with your sponsoring organization if you are an individual family daycare provider. Here we're showing our application timeline. Please refer to the grant website for the most up-to-date opening and closing dates for the application to ensure that you're getting the most accurate and up-to-date information. And you'll also refer to the website for expected award announcements. All projects funded in the 25-27 biennium must end by June 30th, 2027. So keep that in mind as you're developing your project proposals, that the funding that is allocated for this grant must be used by the state. Now we'll dive into a little bit more information about the awards themselves that are eligible through this program. This is a grant program that is competitive, and so applications are evaluated by a group of community reviewers who then score applications and then recommend them for funding. The funds for this program are also distributed on a reimbursement basis. So awards do not arrive as a lump sum. They are distributed to grantees as reimbursement for complete purchases. So keep that in mind. This is maybe a different structure from other grant programs that you may have applied for or participated in the past. When developing your application and your award requests, keep in mind that funding should be realistic and based on planned purchases. Regardless of the amount that your organization is eligible for, project proposals and planned purchases are expected to be realistic and based on those planned purchases. If you are awarded, the proposal that you submit serves as your project plan, and you're expected to execute that as you described in your application. So please ensure that what you're providing as a plan is true and within your capacity as an organization at this time. You're, of course, encouraged to apply or request less funding if you do not have a need or a project that is in line with the maximum funding that you are eligible for within this program. Maximum award eligibility within this program is determined based on the size of the child nutrition program. And this is different. The way we do this is different for school meal awards and child care meal awards. For school meal awards, these are based on October 2024 lunch counts. And then for childcare meals, this is based off of your prior year meal reimbursement for CACFP sponsors. If you are not a CACFP sponsor and you are an early learning organization operated by a federally recognized tribe, this would be your previous year food budget. Now, within the awards that are made within this program, the grant awards will have two spending periods that align with the state fiscal year. The amounts awarded in each fiscal year will may be the same or different that you request, and then funds awarded for one fiscal year cannot be spent in the other fiscal year. So here, those two awards are fiscal year 2026, and that funding will need to be used by June 30th, 2026. And then for fiscal year 2027, the funding can begin to be used by July 1st, 2026, and until the end of the grant period. Now, for example, if you are awarded $5,000 in fiscal year 2026 and $10,000 in fiscal year 2027, and do not spend down your fiscal year 2026 award by the stated deadline here, you cannot use any remaining funds in that award in this funding period. So please keep in mind this funding does not roll over if not used. And this is important for planning an appropriate project and making sure that these funds are used appropriately within these projects. We're now going to move into a few slides that are giving an overview of what eligible expenses are within this program for reimbursement. This is primarily a purchasing grant for food, and all of the funds that are awarded through this program must be used for the grant purpose, which is increasing the use of Washington-grown, raised, caught, or foraged foods in child nutrition programs. So related to that purpose, at least 75% of the awarded grant funds must be spent on eligible food purchases. Awardees may spend up to 100% of the awarded funds on food purchases. Eligible foods for this grant program must be grown, raised, harvested, or caught within Washington State. So this includes produce, such as fruits and vegetables, could be meat products, seafood products, grain products, that are all grown, raised, or caught within Washington State. We also will reimburse for processed or packaged foods so long as the primary ingredient of this product is 100% Washington grown, raised, caught, or foraged. Please note that fluid milk is not eligible for reimbursement through this program. However, milk products such as cheese or yogurt that are made with Washington milk would qualify for reimbursement through the processed or packaged foods as a processed or packaged food within our program. Additionally, I want to remind you that grantees are strongly encouraged to source from Washington-grown foods from small farms. Again, this is within the intent of the Regional Markets Program, and it also supports strengthening local relationships and economies. So please keep that in mind that this is strongly encouraged within our program. If you would like any additional resources with identifying small farms for your project, please do contact me either via email or you can attend a question and answer session. I'd be happy to help guide you on identifying what would qualify for as a small farm within this definition. In addition to food expenses, non-food costs are eligible for reimbursement through this program. The awardees may use up to a maximum of 25% of their award on eligible non-food costs. This is optional, but can be used to support a proposed project. Non-food costs will be detailed in the application and should be critical to performing the proposed project. So make sure that as you're brainstorming how you would like your budget to be broken down, make sure that the non-food costs that you're requesting are adequately justified within your application. Some examples of non-food costs and major categories are listed here, but we also have more specific examples either at the QR code here or at this link listed in our grant guidelines online. Now we're going to discuss the evaluation criteria for applications. As I mentioned before, a community grant review team will evaluate applications based off of the evaluation criteria that we are listing here. Then they will recommend applications for award. The detailed scoring criteria associated with each of these categories can be found in our grant guidelines and application. Please remember that proposing eligible expenses does not necessarily mean that your project will score maximum points. So please pay close attention to what criteria the community review team will be using to evaluate your application. And again, all of that information is summarized within our grant guidelines, so please do refer back to that if you would like additional information there. You can also contact me if you have any questions about the details I just covered. Now we're going to dive into a section showing you how to apply on our grant portal. So the grant portal link is listed here. Please take note, this is a different link than our previous applications have been at. So please be sure that you are going to the correct link for fiscal year 2026. From here, you'll then sign up for a new account and create a profile within that portal. This will also be where you complete your application questions, prepare your project budget, complete attestations of signature, and then submit your application. So please keep in mind this is the only place you can submit your application for consideration and review within this grant program. This is what the sign-up page will look like when you arrive at the link I provided on the previous page. You'll see a welcome to the portal for 2025 and to 2027. This may look familiar to people who have applied for this program in the past, but again, this is a different portal. So please do create a new account, even if you have applied for this program before. You'll provide your email and create a password, and then we'll be able to sign in. Please keep in mind, similar to previous grant rounds, only one login is allowed per application. So you're likely working with a number of people on developing your application, and will need to select one person to have the login associated with their name. I would highly recommend that this would be the main contact for your project, the leader for your project, or the person who would be most responsive to questions. We'll use this to contact anyone who about your application. If there are any problems, concerns, questions that we have, though everyone who is listed as a contact within the grant portal will receive updates as the application moves through review. For anyone who wishes to see the grant portal in a language other than English, you can access that by clicking on this globe here. And Spanish is an option within there, and you should be able to see the grant portal translated from there. Once you log in, you'll then create a profile to get started. In the profile, you'll provide information about your organization, as well as contact information for your project team. So your project team will include both folks that operate the child nutrition program, as well as the business staff that are supporting on your project. So the contacts provided here will receive updates on your application review, and will also be a source of contacts for getting in touch with you about any issues with your application. These will also be the contact information that would feed into your successful grant portal should you be awarded. So please make sure that you're taking the time to list all of the relevant contacts for your project here. Once you're done with your profile and providing the information asked for in there, you can go ahead and get started with your application. Please note that when you are completing your profile, you'll be asked to potentially provide you'll be asked to provide some identifying information for your organization. Included in this is a unique entity identifier number through SAM.gov. You will need to provide this by the time if you are awarded a grant. So you may wish to start this process now. We also ask for statewide vendor numbers. And if you do not have a statewide vendor number, you'll need one before you can be awarded a grant. If you need any help with registering or accessing any of this information, please do reach out to me and I can support you on navigating that process. Next, you'll move on to fill out your application. Within the application, there are 3 different forms within the grant portal. There's the application questions form, which is a subset of the application itself. There is the budget proposal section, which has separate forms for different components of your budget. And then there's the attestations and signature, which must be complete before you can submit your application. Keep in mind that though the application questions and the budget proposal are in different forms, they're all for the same project. So please ensure that your budget proposal that you construct closely aligns with the proposed project that you describe in your application questions. I'll repeat this a handful of times, but just want to make sure that that the community reviewers evaluate these projects both based off of what is submitted in the application questions as well as what's in the project proposal. So please consider these as 2 different parts of the same project. This is what it will look like when you go into to start your application questions section. You'll click open within your portal and then you'll see a form that you can start completing. Within the application questions section, there are a handful of different subsections. There's the eligibility check, where you can make sure that you are eligible for the grant before you continue with your application. You'll also provide additional program information. You'll provide some data that will help us score the student and community needs section of your application. And then finally, there are several project narrative questions that you will provide information on. Prior to completing your project narrative section, you'll see an option to view and download the purchasing plan template, which will be uploaded as part of your budget proposal. So you will not be uploading that as part of this form, but is closely tied to the project that you'll be describing in your project narrative. So you'll see a prompt that suggests that you might want to fill out that template as you're completing your project narrative. Regardless of how you choose, what order you choose to do things in, make sure that that purchasing plan template matches your project narrative closely. Once you're complete with your application questions and narrative questions, you'll then go into the budget proposal section. Again, you'll click open, and then you'll see a landing page where you can create separate budget proposals for different categories of your budget. You're required to create a budget proposal for food costs. Non-food cost budget categories are optional. So you will have a minimum of 1 budget proposal within this area of the grant portal. And you can have several non-food budget categories if you so wish. When you go into the budget proposal section, you'll create a budget proposal form and you'll select the category food when prompted. This will then populate a number of fields below it that will make sure that you're filling out all mandatory information for the budget proposal section. You'll go ahead and, if you haven't already, download, complete, and then you'll upload that purchasing plan template for your project. So you may have done this already. You may have filled out this template already as part of your application question section. But either way, this is where you'll be uploading that template, which is required to be able to submit your application. Then below that, you'll see a section that says category budget request. The number that you'll enter into here is the food budget request that you are making for your award. And so this will be totaled up as part of your purchasing plan and filling out your purchasing plan. Then below that, there's going to be a number of fields associated with a section called budget summary. This is going to refer to your total award as well as any potential non-food costs that are within your award. So don't get confused. That is a part of the food template, but will refer to the entire budget that you are proposing for your project. So please complete that budget summary section and check that the proposed total budget and non-food budgets are within the allowed limits for the size of your child nutrition program. And you'll be prompted and told what that maximum will be throughout this section. Once you're done with that, you can mark that as complete. But keep in mind, you can come back to this form, double check that budget summary section if you are going ahead and filling out additional non-food budget proposals. So you can go ahead, triple check that all of the information on this form is correct and come back to it before you submit your application. So again, food budget proposals are required. Now we're going to go over an optional section, which is filling out non-food budget categories, proposals for non-food budget categories. You do not need to do this to have your application be complete. You'll then, you'll create a new form, just as you did for food, but you'll select the most appropriate budget category, the budget category that you're requesting funding for. So you'll see a drop-down menu. You can select from equipment, materials, and supplies. If you have any questions about how these what falls within these categories, please refer back to the grant guidelines. You can also contact me if you have any questions about if a cost falls into different non-food budget categories. Then you will go ahead and describe all of the planned purchases within this category. So if you're requesting staff time as part of your non-food budget, you'll go ahead and describe all planned costs within staff time. So if that is time for staff to prepare food, as well as for staff to be able to administer the grant and do more administrative tasks. You'll describe all of those separate tasks within your staffing costs budget category. You'll then describe how these purchases are connected to your project plan. As I stated earlier, these parts of your application are evaluated along with your project narrative. So please make sure to justify how this additional costs, especially for a non-food cost, are essential to your project plan and connected to the activities described in your project plan. You'll then describe how you estimated the cost of these purchases, and you'll see some additional details of what you should provide within the budget proposal form. Then finally, you'll enter the total cost of the planned purchases in this category into category budget request. So if you're expecting to spend, let's say I was spending $500 on salary for food prep staff and then $500 throughout the course of my grant for administrative support, I would still enter the sum of those two numbers, $1,000, into this. So this is a pretty big change from our previous applications. So please take note that this is for the entire budget category. And then if you have any other non-food budget proposals that you would like to submit, for example, if you would like to request equipment or materials and supplies, you'll create additional budget proposals using these steps. Once you are complete and have created all of your non-food proposals for non-food costs, you can then return to your budget proposal form for food. Again, this is where your budget summary section is housed. And you'll want to double check that all of the costs that you're submitting for non-food that you just submitted proposals for match up with what is in this form here. You'll want to check two things. One, that your total requested non-food budget is less than or equal to 25% of your total requested funding amount. So you'll see your total requested non-food budget here. Again, this is optional. And then there's an auto-calculated field that says non-food cost budget, percent of total request here. And so we can see here, the amount I'm requesting for non-food is just over 16%. And so I am below 25%, and that's allowable as a non-food breakdown of my total food, total award request. You'll also want to double check within that the budget requests that you see on your budget proposal page. So we can see budget categories for food, staffing, and then something else here. That the numbers for things that are not food, so here this would be $2,000 for this application, match with the total requested non-food budget that is within your within the food budget summary that you have at the bottom of this form. So just make sure that all of these numbers match up and so that there's no confusion on our end and that we are very clear on exactly what you're proposing and how much funding you would like to allocate to each of these sections, each of these portions of your project. Finally, you'll need to submit attestations and sign your application before submitting. So this will be a series of attestations and just confirming your understanding and responsibility as an applicant within this program. And so you'll open that and mark it complete just as you did for the previous forms. Once all three of these sections is complete, you can go ahead and submit your application. You are also able to, if you submit your application and it is before the application deadline, you may reopen your application to continue to make edits, so long as you then resubmit your application before the application deadline. So please keep in mind, you'll submit your application. Then if you want to make edits later before the deadline, you'll reopen it, make those edits, and then resubmit. Be very careful just because if you submit, edit, it will not automatically resubmit for you. Once the deadline has passed, submitted applications cannot be edited, but you will be able to view the application that you submitted. So just keep a close eye on what the deadline is, and that will be, you'll still be able to go in and see your application afterwards if you would like to reference that later. That is the overview I have of the grant portal. And so this is just a brief overview. There may be other questions that come up. So you are welcome to contact me. My colleague Annette Slonim also supports on our Farm to School purchasing grant, as well as overall Farm to School activities. You can contact either of us using this email. So please, if you have a question via email, send it here and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. You can also contact me via phone here using this number, 360-819-7412. Please keep in mind that we can provide general application support to applicants, including understanding the grant selection process and requirements. However, we need to make sure that we are treating all applicants equally and receive equal treatment. So we cannot provide individual assistance with individual proposals and developing your proposals. So please keep that in mind. We'll let you know if we can't answer a question for you or if we need to reframe it. Finally, there's also opportunities to come to question and answer sessions throughout the application period. I will be available for several hour-long sessions throughout the application period. You can find more information and registration for these question and answer sessions at this QR code, and then also at our grant webpage. Please keep in mind these are question and answer sessions, and there will not be any additional information presented on or any additional programming. So I will just be there. You can show up, ask your question, and then leave at your leisure. And of course, you can always reach me at these other avenues as well. With that, I want to thank you so much for your time today. My name's Rachel, and I really look forward to reviewing all of your applications and for your interest in this grant program. Have a great day.